Hey there, welcome back to Tips Over Tea. This is episode 25. I am Nicole, your host. We have the great pleasure of speaking with Nathaniel Brown today about transcending trauma. We talk a lot about having experienced trauma, but what I don't hear a lot of conversations on is how do you get past it and live your best life. So, if this is something that is of interest to you or someone you know, I want to make sure you bring some self compassion, your notebook, your tea, and listen in. I'll see you soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 25 of Tips Over Tea. I want to thank you again for tuning in. We have this wonderful Nathaniel Brown with us today. Nathaniel, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a long time coming, but I'm glad we were able to get it on the books and get cracking at it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate you. You know a lot of things, but one thing I want to focus on with you is the transcending trauma piece. How do you approach that? Well, actually, first, what led you to, if you don't mind sharing, what led you to that program that you
Well,
do?
it was more of a personal journey. I realized after and I'll briefly state this.
Sure.
I went into a meditation. I sort of got pulled into it. That pulled me into a deep spiral into myself, and I was revisiting the event at 8 years old, the sexual trauma that I had experienced, and I saw myself abandoned, alone in the house that I lived in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
I walked back in time, and I was approaching this little boy in an abandoned room, and it was me. I saw
Mm-hmm.
myself as an 8-year-old child with his face in his palm, and he was alone, untrusting of the world, and it was a representation of my emotional maturity. I had matured at the level of an 8-year-old, and I was in an adult body. I was 30 some odd year old male with an 8-year-old emotional tantrum. If that makes any sense. And I knew I needed to get help. I knew I had to get the kind of help that I needed, but it wasn't doing the work. It was when I went within and I found that child alone, and I was able to get that trust regained again, and was able to again go back within myself. When I say I went into myself, I went down a spiral stairway. A doorway opened up. I walked through the door. I'm standing in front of my house. I
Yeah.
walked the child, me, out the door into the street. I looked back at the house. I said, "You're never coming back here again." The door reappears after I said those words. I
Mm-hmm.
had to reassure my emotional self that this is not a place to return to. And we walked through the door. Now the stairway only goes up. When I
Mm-hmm.
walked through the door the first time, it only went down. Now the stairway only goes up. I walk up the stairs, and then I'm standing present day in the driveway of my house in North Carolina. And I'm walking the child myself through the house, inviting him in, letting him know you're home now. And
Mm-hmm.
once the trust was fully connected, this integration happened where this 8-year-old boy looked up at me with holding my hand, and he literally walked inside my body. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I knew that the transformation, how we transcend trauma, is that we descend into ourselves, into the depths of who we are. And that's the only way to transcend it. There's no other way. There's no self-help books that's going to do it for you. There's no pastor that's going to do it for you. There's no preacher, no guru, none of that stuff is going to do it for you, because the work was for you. The experience of trauma was yours. It was your entryway into being who you are to become. The most traumatic thing for a seed is for it to be abandoned in the dark, only for it to crack open to find the light again. That's exactly the life experience that we're encountering, and that's what we agreed to.
I love that. I love that. We have a tendency to completely miss that, right? Because we don't realize that we're still in the youthful state of mind
Right.
with respect to our emotions and things like that. So of course, dealing with them is scary. So it's
Mhm.
easier to either not deal with them at all.
Right.
Well, it seems easier to either not deal
Right.
with them at
Right.
all or keep seeking help outside of ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's
Right.
the illusion. The illusion is that there is a something out there. The illusion is that there is a something. That that
Mhm.
that is where the illusion starts. The I am principle always teaches, and it's a principle that is replete in the universe, is that there is nothing outside of you. Everything else is a mirror of
Mm,
you. So there is no something somewhere else. It's you.
mm,
And the seed can't rely on anything else except itself, that's innately capable of breaking out of its shell. And it's you. And that's the trauma is, it's the journey. It's
yeah,
it's a plot twist. There's no real story without a plot twist. So the
yeah,
plot twist in every journey is the traumatic experience. Like, oh, that was a plot twist. Okay, and what if we all called it that?
yeah,
Because if we change our language, we change the form of the experience, right?
yeah,
Because words become flesh. That's a principle. That's not just in the Bible for, happenstance. It's a principle. Words become flesh. Words are an artifact of thought and mind, and how they cohere with one another. So once you start having things come out of your mouth, realize that that artifact is like steps down the ladder of where of I am into form. So
mm,
now, in order to heal, you have to transcend, and transcending is going back up the steps
mm.
into I am, and then you see the purpose for the experience.
I love that, and I really love the seed analogy because then you can, for the visual people
Of
especially,
course,
you can
of course.
visualize like, oh, that plot twist was my seed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So for me to grow into whatever that seed is supposed to grow into.
yeah.
So I love that. How did you know? Did you do that meditation just on your own, or did someone?
I was literally. It's funny. I sat down.
Hmm.
I was sitting down in my recliner in my bedroom, just sitting there. I had been studying from a personal trainer certification, so I had been studying most of the day, and I decided to take a brain break. And for whatever reason, I flipped on YouTube, and I was going to watch some sort of video, some sort of self help, something spiritual, universal type things that I like to listen to,
Hmm.
and this infomercial, like video ads, these ads come up, and it was a lady talking about I am not enough. She was talking about that. I was like, well, I don't really feel that way. But like I felt this thing in my heart center that was like heating up. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, I'll listen. I'm gonna just listen to what she got to say. So
Hmm.
I clicked on launch video and put my name in the stuff or whatever. And she started leading people through this experience, this journey, this like, oh, I want you to close your eyes. Just and I'm like, I don't feel like doing this. I never do stuff like this. And the moment I closed my eyes is when I went into the experience. Like it was ready. The door was open,
Yeah.
and I was ready for it. Any other time I would not have been ready for it, but I was ready for it at that moment. And man, what a transformation!
Yeah, you said a couple of key things there. And so I'm curious though, because you know how you said you had to rekindle that trust, right?
Mhm.
You literally just trusted what you were feeling and you went with it, which took you to a place where you can, regain that trust. So it's
Exactly.
interesting that
Yeah.
so you had developed. So that I appreciate that because a lot of times we have that voice or we have
Mhm.
that feeling and that
Yeah.
calling and we negate it. It's just
Yeah.
and it's so faint because we've not listened for so long. We don't.
Right.
Sometimes we could just completely miss it.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely. And it's like, I call these the ventricles of want. We want things in these bellies. We have appetites of what we want, but we don't know how to get a hold of it. But
mhm,
you got to ask yourself these relevant questions like, okay, so what do I want? Most people don't even know how to answer that question because
yeah,
most of the wants are programs from past experiences. They're not even theirs. They belong to other people,
yeah,
generations down the line, and some even more recent as brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers.
mhm,
But the ventricles of want, we want what we already have that we are unaware of. We want what we're ungrateful for,
mhm,
and then we want what we have not given.
mhm.
And it was the trust that I was not giving that I was not getting. And the moment I was willing to trust, I was rewarded with trust in myself. And that's what broke the thing open.
Freaking love that. I love that. I love that. And then what else came to mind was you were ready,
Hmm.
right? You were ready to receive that. What do you think prepared you to get ready for that? Because it's not like you said, that was not an intentional kind, right? You
Right,
kind of
right.
happened upon it, and of course, by happen we mean it was
It was
set in
designed, right, right. It
stone.
was orchestrated.
Yes. But so how were you getting ready up until that point, or
I was. I had been on a journey of enlightenment, I call it,
Mhm.
for 15 years. at least.
Okay.
I started asking questions about things, and since I was a kid, things
Mm,
didn't line up for me. Just
mhm,
but I wasn't invited into that curiosity, and that was shunned upon. You don't question God, you don't question your pastors, you don't question these things. Excuse me.
mhm,
But when I leaned into my curiosity about 15 years ago, I sat on the side of the bed. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I said, "Okay." And I just kind of made a prayer to the creation, and I said, "Show me how deep the rabbit hole goes."
mm,
And I didn't know what I was asking for, but
mhm,
every paradigm I had was
mhm.
being unraveled, and even to the point to where now it's like, okay, I was still holding on to my belief systems
Yeah.
about trauma, about who I was, and spirituality and everything. Like I still held on to those things. I thought that was real. I thought it was true. And then
Mm,
one day at dinner time on my sofa and in my house, this voice echoes inside and around me, says, and the voice was, well, what if everything you believe is complete bullshit? I didn't say it.
mhm,
My mouth was, I was eating food.
mhm, mhm,
Okay.
mhm,
So I said, I don't have an answer for that question. And that led me to the second phase where I took all of my paradigms, all of my belief systems, and I put them in a jar mentally. I literally pictured myself putting them in a jar, and I closed the jar and sealed it. And I set it on a shelf, and I left it there. And I said, okay, I'll revisit this when I dive into this level of curiosity that I needed to dive
mhm,
into. And it the world expanded after I let go of what I thought was so true.
mhm,
And there's a verse in the scriptures, you will know the truth. Most people quote it wrong. They say, well, the truth will set you free. No, 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 no. It says you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Now, the
mhm,
reason why it's so important is because knowing the truth, if you break that text down in the Greek, it literally means to recognize and admit where you're ignorant.
mhm.
So you will know where you're ignorant, and your liberty will come from your recognition of ignorance.
I love that. Somebody needs to hear this. Like it seems so duh, but
Uh-huh.
it's so funny how we don't look further into what people tell us
Right.
enough.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like the origin of words
Oh yeah.
and like what did they originally mean? Like I was reading a book and the word Lord meant law. Like
Mm.
you say
Mm.
Lord, but they were talking about the law, and there's
Mhm.
universal laws,
Of
right?
course. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just interesting how the interpretation is shared, and I don't know if that's intentional. We won't
Oh,
get into that, but intentional or misunderstood. You know
right.
what I mean?
Right.
Like could literally be somebody genuinely just not understanding what they're reading, which
Hmm.
it's unfortunate for so
Yeah.
many people.
Yeah.
Um, so I appreciate the fact because one of the things I subtly have even my clients do is take responsibility for themselves, their lives,
Absolutely.
their emotions, their mind.
Absolutely.
And it's because it's the only way that you could really understand and navigate like where you want to go next.
Mhm.
So I can appreciate that,
Mhm.
knowing what you don't know and figuring out how you need to
Yep. Yep. Yep.
that is
It's
freedom.
it's it is freedom. It's like the most sure thing is unsurety, right? So like I had an issue here at the house. My wife was like, I have something coming in. It came in, but I was helping my son weed the flower beds. So
Mhm,
when the package came in, I
mhm,
put it on the windowsill outside of our bedroom, outside of our master bedroom. And
mhm,
then, but in my mind, I told myself the story that I had brought it in the house and set it by the stairwell. Now, I believe that story so emphatically that that had to be absolute truth. And my wife was like, "Well, I know it came." I said, "Yeah, I know it came, and I put it right here. I put it right here. I'm emphatic, right? I'm right. I put it right here, and I'm not mad about it. I was like, I don't know what happened to it." And
mhm,
then one day she went out to, at a week or so, a week and a half probably passed, and she walked outside to walk the dog. And while the dog was going potty next to the flower bed, she looked up on the window, and she called me, and she said, "Honey, come outside." So I was like, "What happened?" She said, "Look right there." I said, "Wow." And I said, "The only thing I'm sure of is that I am sure of nothing."
mhm.
And I said, "That will be my new mantra for the rest of my life."
I love that. I love that because, yeah, so two things there. Um, you had a story that you said, and so many people are trapped in stories that they tell themselves, or even stories they don't even know that they're telling
Right,
themselves.
right,
And that's where
right.
I'm on a mission, like helping you reveal the stories that you're telling yourself. Because when
Absolutely.
people would say to me, "What stories are you telling yourselves?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?
Right.
I don't tell myself any stories."
You
But
do.
right?
You do.
Yes, I'm still discovering them.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I love that you mentioned that because it's literally and it literally controlled how you responded,
Yeah,
with that situation.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
we don't think about like that correlation like that, and that's our
Right.
subconscious mind, like
Of course it is. Yeah. I mean,
right.
the subconscious mind gives you back what you plan in it. I mean, like that's all it does. It's a field. It's blank. It's a blank canvas, and whatever programs you throw in there, that's the one that'll run. And until you clear those programs, and that's one of the things that I do is the emotional clearing, where I actually help people clear the emotional energy around programs that have been
Mhm,
blocking them. I literally had a client this week had a money block. I found the program. It was at when she was 5 years old,
mhm,
and we went after that program in a way that was more inviting. We initiated a gratitude mantra that we can fill in that space, because
mhm.
whatever you take out of the mind will fill, right? So
Yeah,
you gotta put something in that space as a
yeah.
placeholder. So as a placeholder where that program was, we put a new program in, and within 24 hours, she was emailing me back like, I don't understand what's going on, but everything is starting to change.
I love it.
I love it.
Love
But
it.
that's how quick it happens. Just that quick. Me telling my story in a split second. That one story. I put it right here, and I
Mhm.
believed it. I believed it so emphatically, whether it was true or not, it didn't matter. The
Right.
story, I believe the story, and the story made it real.
Yep. Yep. And that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
um, that is, I like that also because the fact that it brought to revelation for you, I don't know that uncertainty, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I do that even just with, um, like if I lose something in the house, like what did I know I normally do this,
Right.
like
Right.
something as simple as
Exactly.
that. So
Exactly.
you can imagine what stories were, for one, planted in us
Right.
before we even realize it, and
Right.
we're still living a lot of that stuff out, and we're still, the plot twist hasn't turned yet because we're still
Right.
living in that plot,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I,
Exactly. I often, when I lose stuff, I have to I have to be I've created a new way of approaching losing stuff, because
mhm,
it's like if it's in this three-dimensional world, it's not lost. It's just unseen, right? So
mhm,
I
mhm,
always say like, okay, well, nothing is ever lost. It's just unseen. So my son, we was working on the farm one day. He went to get some lunch. He set his keys down. He told himself a story. He set his keys down in this spot. He did, and the guys around him said, "Yeah, he put it right here. This is the only place he's been." I said, "Well, something ain't right, because I'm feeling like it's at the house, and I know you didn't go to the house, but how did it get there? Like, I don't know." So I said, "Well, nothing is lost. Everything is here. Nothing is ever lost. It's just unseen." So I closed
mhm,
my eyes, and I asked myself, I said, "So where are the keys?" And inside myself, my me, the essence of me said, they're at the house.
mhm,
I go in the house, I look in the house, I can't find them.
mhm,
And then I come out the garage, and something says, "Look on the bench." I have a
mhm,
workout station in my garage, and
mhm,
on the bench is his car keys. And
mhm,
this happened more than one time, where
mhm,
I was able to see the truth of nothing is actually ever lost. Everything is here. Everything is available. The creation is a complete cycle, and everything we need exists in the field and in reality. However we want to word that, but everything exists if we'll be okay with not being sure about anything.
mhm,
Once you give up surety,
mhm. It's limitless.
exactly. Exactly. You give up surety, and you vow to remain ignorant for the sake of understanding the world you live in. You vow to remain ignorant for the sake of liberty. Because not ignorant for the sake of ignorance is
Right.
non-productive, but
It's not.
ignorant for the sake of being liberated from your own renditions of what you think are true. Man,
I love that. I love that. So like, because it's empowering, right? Like it really lets people know that, like you just said, you have it already.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's unseen right
It's
now.
unseen, it's not lost, and that's what I love about how trauma comes in. Traumas come in to teach us how to breathe again. It's just
Mhm.
that one little thing that happens in our lives that takes our breath away, and we stop breathing and we stop living, and then we need an introduction, sort of a defibrillator to come in and bring us back to life again, or someone to come along us and inspire us, because the word
Mhm.
inspiration is to breathe life back in, to breathe, to put breath in. When we are inspired, that spirit goes back in, and then we, oh, this is what we're supposed to be doing, and we start breathing again. And when you're breathing, this is how important this is. Breathing is the exchange between you and your creator.
Mhm.
That's how beautiful breath is. As a matter of fact, Yeshua himself says God, Theos, is wind, pneuma, spirit, breath.
I love it. I love it. Like, no words. No words. I love that. Um, yeah, we talk about breathing and meditating, but a lot of times people are like struggling to do that, because they're trying to achieve some state of
Right,
whatever the story it is that
right,
meditation looks like for them.
right, right.
Um, and so, yeah, letting go is,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. The power of surrender is something amazing, and I talk about surrender a lot because
Oh, I don't know if I froze or just you froze.
oh yeah, I brought for a second. You can
Okay.
tell someone who doesn't practice surrender because they're always referring back to old situations, like, oh, well, you did this, and they'll bring all the stuff up in the moment, like they haven't let it go yet. There's still an
Mhm.
emotional attachment to it. And one thing that Joe Dispenza says, he says, a memory without emotional attachment is wisdom.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
powerful, because
It is.
you haven't learned from it if you're still emotionally attached to it.
Yeah.
And when you surrender, when you really let it go, you're not just surrendering it away and you're like off in the distance. What you're doing is you're absorbing it into your entire being. It's like when you stump your toe, and like I practiced this as a kid and now I
Mhm.
do it all the time. If I hit my hand on something or whatever, I'll say ouch in the moment and I'll close my eyes and I will radiate that pain all the way through my body, so that the focal point is no longer the epicenter of the pain. I've absorbed all of the feeling of hurt all through my body, and it doesn't have a place to just rest. And once
Mhm.
it's absorbed, there's no memory of it. There's no emotional attachment to it anymore. I can move on now. And that's what we do with trauma. What we do is we absorb the trauma. We breathe the whole event in, take responsibility for our being in the space with the traumatic experience, because that's what it's all about. It's not about the other person, it's about you
Right.
being responsible in the moment. I was there, therefore I take responsibility for all stories of shame and blame and unforgiveness and bitterness and anger. You take responsibility for those stories and you absorb, and it dissolves. And the power of it is no longer called trauma. It's now a tool for inspiration and bringing life back into other people. So now it's not a miracle, it's a technology.
I love it. I love it. I was just talking to someone yesterday. I did a podcast interview yesterday, and I was talking about taking responsibility for your part. Like,
Mm,
you can't control what the person did or the
nope,
people or whatever, but what you can control is how you respond to it from this point
absolutely.
forward.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so I really appreciate the fact that you said remove the emotion from it. And that also brought to mind, I remember I wanted to do like a talk on my past trauma, but emotion still came up.
Hmm.
And I was like, and someone said, you aren't ready yet because you're not
Hmm.
fully healed from it. And I was
Hmm.
like, and I didn't understand that at the time, but
Right.
of course, now I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then just now, what came to mind is the story I was telling myself: if I don't cry anymore, then something must be wrong with me.
Right, right, right.
Right?
And that's that current mantra. That's this current coaching, spiritual thing that's going on right now is that everybody is so cool with the trauma talk, and then everybody is crying, and I mean, like, they're emoting as if they're still connected to it. I can understand having some emotion because they want to see people free. That's different. But if you're emotional because you're still hurt, then you're not at a place where you can actually bring healing to anyone else. What you're going to do is create what's called trauma bonds. Right.
Yes.
And so, like, you're actually not helping anybody. You're giving them a right to stay in shame, blame, unforgiveness, anger, resentment, all those things. You're just creating a cauldron of traumatic byproducts. Right. So, like,
Mhm.
it's now it's not even a tool for healing anymore. It's just, you're just, again, trauma bonding. You're just creating more nonsense. And the idea is, you want to really change the story, get in there and take responsibility. And no faults. Yeah, someone did something that made you feel a certain way, but the event wasn't about them. It was
Yeah.
about you. It was
Yep.
every event that we experience is about us. And
Yep.
we've asked for it. We agreed to come here into this three-dimensional world to have that experience. It's a part of the agreement. Somewhere in the cosmos, you said yes to
Mhm.
this event in your life. And it's now time to take responsibility for it. The only way to transcend is to go into it and figure out what it was trying to teach you, because there's a lesson in all things.
Mhm.
Reduce yourself down to the distill yourself down to I am, so you can be a true observer. Remove the emotional content from it so you can really see it for what it is, and let trauma teach you who you were to be in the moment, and you'll get the lesson.
Mhm.
You'll get the lesson, but it requires you to kind of go through some BS for a while. You gotta sit with the story. It's gotta hurt. It's gotta fester. It's gotta create some discomfort, some uncomfortability. And once you get to that level, everything has a climax. Once you get that climax of, I've had it up to here, and then,
Mhm.
maybe the universe might, the creator might put something else on it, like, oh, you said, let me try this right here, just a little bit more. And
Still.
exactly, when you make that breaking point, when you're ready to boil over, now you got to deal with the spillage, and
Yeah.
that's the real work.
Yep. Yep. It's just when you were just backing up to when you were talking about the trauma, like making it. It reminded me. It was a I don't remember which book it was. I do that a lot. I need to do better about remembering which book it is, but it was talking about like a lady who was divorced, and she was in this group of divorced women, and they were all very bitter, and they weren't healing. They thought they were supporting each other in their you know bitterness and sadness of the
Mhm.
divorce, but she ended up seeing a therapist, and he was like, "Yeah, you need to get away from that group because they're not transcending their issue, right?" And so she did,
Right.
and once she really did the work, she actually found someone, or she ended up
Yeah.
being with someone that actually valued who she was and all that. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it that is the difference between.
Yeah. That's the difference between healing from it and transcending it, or just
Mhm,
bonding to it as if it's something that you have to stay connected to, and then you never transcend. You never become who you are to become because you got stuck in the story, in the trauma story, and you just keep repeating the cycle. And the Buddhists call it cyclical behavior, and it
mhm,
only leads you into a rut. Yeah, I mean, like, it's the picture. I often refer to this. It's the picture of Samson having his hair grown back, not realizing he has his strength back, but he's still grinding out corn
mhm, mhm,
in a rut. Literally, it says that he's in a rut. If you read it in the Hebrew text, it suggests that he stays in a rut with all of his strength available to him. And you've
mhm,
got all your strength available to you, and you don't know your hair has grown back because someone deceives you into believing that the rut was where you belonged.
mhm, mhm. Yep. You know what? That reminds me. I was talking to someone the other day, and I was talking about, like, you have all this power. What are you going to do with it? It's
Yeah,
because people don't realize how much power they have over themselves
yeah,
and their lives.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so what are you gonna do with all that power? And he was
yeah,
like, he had never thought about it that
yeah.
way.
Exactly, exactly. I
So,
mean, like, I was talking to a lady who was suicidal, and after she told me the whole story about what was going on in her life, and she had some pretty traumatic experiences, but
sure.
my response didn't validate the experiences. What I responded to was her power to be able to be a good storyteller. So what I said was, I said, "Congratulations, you're an amazing storyteller. Now write a new one."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Total pattern interrupt for her.
Yes.
Like she said, I mean, she looked and she's like, I don't know whether to be mad at you or to thank you. So I mean, like, because it's that simple. It's really that simple. But we get so stuck and so bogged down into what we think is real. Again, nothing is sure except unsurety. Nothing is certain except uncertainty. So you stay in these ruts so long. It's like, well, this is the rut becomes who we are.
Yeah.
And that's where the depression sets in, because you've adopted and accepted an identity that's not really you. It's a false self. It's a small self, as Paul Selig would say. It's a
Yeah.
small sense of self. But when you really embrace, and I will quote some more Paul Selig stuff because I love his stuff, but I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am free. I am free. I am free. That is a mantra of the liberated. And you don't negotiate with your ego anymore. You simply say, okay, the work is going to have to get done because I can't stay here this too much longer. And I told this lady, I said, you can't afford to keep this old story any longer. If you stay here, it will take you out.
Yeah.
And it's the truth for all of us. If I stayed in the old story I had, I'd still be back and forth in anger management. Maybe not. I mean, like, I don't even know if I would have stayed in it, but I would still be an angry human being looking at the world as if it's my enemy and I'm having to fight my way through it. I don't fight my way through anywhere. I don't even believe in fight. I don't even believe I have an enemy anymore. Like, the moment I switched, I stopped believing in enemies of
Mm-hmm.
me. It's like, wait a minute, I don't have any enemies. I just have mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
no enemies, they're just mirrors. So if you're encountering someone or something that seems to be pulling at a string or pushing a button, well, the person that knows how to push your buttons best is you.
Mm-hmm.
It's you. It's your mirror. You're looking at something in yourself that
Yeah.
is causing you to respond. And the moment you can look at that irritating individual or event and no longer have a response necessary for that event, that's how you know you've transcended. That's how you know that you've gone beyond. Right? You're
Mm-hmm.
no longer in the muck of it. You've went from 3D to 5D, if I would use some of those terminologies. Sort of like that, skipping a step.
I love it. I love it. Well, we are at time
Ooh,
because, like I said, it goes by quick.
of course it does.
I really appreciate what you said, and I could literally talk longer about this,
Of
but
course.
this is my passion. But I want you to please share if you have workshops. Your information will be in the description so people can find you. But if you have anything coming up soon, or a recurring workshop or whatever that you do, feel free to share what you've got going on.
So, like, I did a workshop last year. I'm gonna revamp it. It's called the Creation Formula. If anybody wants to be a part of that, you can just email me, and what I'll do is I'll create a whole new coursework on it. The course is ready, created as a presentation. But I kind of walk people through how creating your reality, alignment, attunement, agreement, and allowances or surrenders, and how this process helps us create the world we want to live in. I also have a podcast called Inspire Beyond, INSPIRE, it's like an acronym. So put the periods behind each of the
Mhm.
letters.
Mhm.
And I've got about 4 episodes. I'm recording episode 5. Probably this weekend, I'll probably record like 2 or 3 episodes and get them up there. But again, it's going to be like the way I talk now is going to be how I'm speaking on the podcast. So
Mhm.
definitely go there. I also do emotional healing. As I said before, I do emotional energy clearing. So you can look me up at theperspectivecoach.us, www.theperspectivecoach.us. You can scroll down and book a session. I do the first session absolutely free for 30 minutes. It's life-changing. Everybody I've done this for has come back with great results thus far. And then if you want to just follow me on Instagram, you can follow me at The Real Nathaniel Brown on Instagram, at The Real Nathaniel Brown. I'll be glad to have you a part of my journey. Looking forward to connecting with you, and thank you so much for your time.
I love it. Thank you so much. I hope you have a flood of people coming your way because so many people need what you do. So awesome. Thank you so much. Those of you who are tuning in live, thank you for your time. Those who tune in later, thank you for yours. Make sure you share this with someone who needs to hear this. You probably have a lot of people who need to be awareness. So, and also just make sure you like, subscribe, click the bell so you'll be notified anytime we upload a new video or go live, because, you know, we've got a lot of stuff that is just helping you become the best version of yourself. And so until next time, thank you again for tuning in, everyone. Thank you again, Nathaniel. This has been a wonderful conversation, and we'll definitely have to get you back on the show. So
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
awesome. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Ciao.
Yeah.
Thanks again for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, and click the bell so you'll be notified anytime we upload a new video or go live. And as always, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to post it in the comments. We're always checking that. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day.